Hello students! In today's video we're going to overcome the fear of losing the peasant b2 or a2 pawns to typical queen attacks against them. The following 5 examples are from my own games that I won, so the situations are as real as it gets. I'm sure you're ending up in similar situations every couple of games. In this position, with the last move white attacked the pawn on b7, but instead of defending that pawn, I was thinking how can I develop the initiative and develop the pieces instead of guarding that peasant pawn. I found the move c5, which prepares the move knight to c6. On the square, the knight is beautifully going to apply a lot of pressure on the white central pawns. White took on b7, after which I developed knight to c6, and you could already see the difference in the activity of the pieces. White is a pawn up, but black is threatening rook b8 and winning the pawn on b2, as well as a lot of pressure on the white's central pawns. In the game, white took on c5. It seems like I cannot take because my bishop drops, but here white made a mistake because after I play rook to b8, queen c7, queen takes c5, and they take the bishop on d7, all of my pieces are surrounding the white's queen, and unfortunately for the white pieces, the queen got trapped and I won the game. Let's move to example number 2. In this position, black was threatening to take on c3 and subsequently win the pawn on a2. So scary, but I just ignore it completely and castle with building up the lead in development. My opponent, of course, takes on c3 and takes the pawn on a2. After queen c2, my opponent was already perplexed and didn't know what to do because of the time they took on their next move. Over here, you could notice that black has 3 pieces not developed. It's unclear how to finish the development of the bishop and put the rooks to fight for the only open file in the game. In this position, white is threatening rook a3 and trapping the black's queen, so queen a5 is forced, after which I played a calm move, rook to c1, and it's very hard for black to be finishing the development. If you turn on the engine suggests knight to e4, which immediately loses the pawn for black, or rather allows white to win the pawn back, but black's problems are not over. White has full development of the army, while black has a lot of issues to solve. Instead, when we go back, my opponent decided to play pawn to b6, I played rook a3, attacking the queen, queen b4, now queen c6, attacking the rook on a8, and after rook b8 and rook takes a7, my opponent had enough and simply resigned. If you're enjoying the video, considering hiring me as your personal online chess coach, my contacts are on the right. I will be waiting for your emails. Let's move to example number 3. In this position, black had a lot of pressure on d4 because the knight on f3, which is the defender of that, can be removed, and subsequently black wants to take this pawn on d4. Instead of figuring out how to defend that pawn without losing b2, I decided just to make a developing move, bishop to e3, and leave this peasant pawn on b2 not protected. Of course, our opponent takes on b2. Over here I played knight to a4, which leaves only a few options for the black's queen. They could go b4 or a3. In the game they played queen a3, but queen b4 would only transpose. So let's play queen to a3 first. Over here I played bishop c1, queen b4 check, bishop d2. That was the point of transposition. And after rook to b1, already black's queen is almost running out of squares. If it was my move, I'm very close to trapping the queen. For example, if they were to take this pawn on a2, rook a1 traps the queen and black has to say goodbye to her. Instead, in the game, c5 followed, covering this b4 square and preventing bishop b4. I now can win the pawn back on b7. Black took on a2, rook to b2 back, queen b1 developing initiative like in the past 2 examples. The knight has to move, after which black's queen is getting trapped and white is winning the game. Let's move to example number 4. In this position, white was threatening my pawn on b7, and instead of defending that pawn, I decided to go with a counter-attacking blow, bishop takes f3. I calculated that after queen b7, I could play the move queen to c8. At first it seems like I'm losing a pawn, because they could just take, and take on f3, but I saw in the game that I have knight takes d4, and white cannot take the knight due to the pin along the c file. Instead, my 2450 rated opponent online in the blitz game played bishop to a6. And if you want, you could pause the video and try figuring out how black could end up winning the game in this position. There are many winning moves. I played queen e6, white's king moved to f1, and after rook b8, white is simply piece down. Remember, I took the knight on f3, and they have no way of winning the piece back over here. So what happened in the game is just they took on b8, I took on b8, they took on f3, and they had to resign after the move queen takes a6. Let's take a look at the fifth and last example today. This is an opening theory of mine. I say of mine because I prepared it, not because others don't know it, of course. And queen to b2 is the threat. I completely ignore it and play the move knight to c3. And after queen b2 and knight takes d5, I'm already threatening the fork on c7. 2350 rated opponent, by the way, online in Blitz. Black played knight a6 in order to secure the square c3. I played e4, which wants to remove the knight and then subsequently play knight c7, or play rook to b1 and bishop b5 with nasty threats against the black's king. In the game, black played e6, rook to b1, bishop b5, and for me, this was all known. I know that these are spectacular moves, but I just knew them by heart, and I won the game without even thinking in the game. Sometimes the opening preparation works out that well, and I just won the game like this. I hope you enjoyed today's video. If you did, consider hiring me as your personal online chess coach. My contacts are on the right. Thank you very much for watching, and see you in the next class.